When someone asks you to make a story plan in only 10 minutes, it can be really hard. First, you need to come up with a good idea for your story. Then, you have to figure out how your story will flow from the beginning to the end. This can make you feel pretty frustrated. But don't worry, help is on hand. In this tutorial, you will learn 3 ways of planning a story. Give each a try, then pick the method that you prefer. Let's get started. Why do we even need a plan? Why can't we just write and see where we end up? Well, you could do this. It can be fun going on a walk without thinking about where you're heading. But the trouble is, sometimes you end up getting lost. Planning your story provides you with a clear and logical sequence to follow, which helps your story to flow better. It can also help stop you experiencing writer's block, that horrible feeling when you don't know what to write about next. Finally, it will save you time. You're probably going to make less changes if you're following a plan. Of course, once you get started, the characters may take a life of their own and lead the story in a different direction. Plus, as you write, new ideas will keep popping up. And that's okay. You don't have to stick to your plan if you don't want to. When you're writing in school, your teacher might give you a planning template to use. There are many different types, and some are easier to use than others. Unfortunately, if you don't get to pick the one you prefer, your teacher might give you a template that you don't like, which isn't very helpful. Instead, I suggest you learn to produce your own planning template on a blank sheet of paper. Before I teach you how to do this, it's important to remember that writing a story takes time. Time that you are sometimes not given. In school, you're often given less than an hour to write it in. So you need to be realistic about what you can accomplish. It's obviously not possible to write the next Harry Potter novel in 60 minutes. So when given a time constraint, keep your story plot simple with fewer characters and fewer settings. The BME story plan is probably the simplest to use. Divide your paper into 3 sections. Beginning, middle, and end. Start by thinking about what happens in the beginning of your story. 2 teenagers, Tamara and Abby, are in a running race. They are from different schools and are competing in the regional championships. There are other good runners in the race, but they are the 2 favourites to win the title. They have a fierce rivalry and never talk to each other. The starter gun sounds, and they're off. Now, move on to the middle of your story. They build a healthy lead over the other athletes and match each other stride for stride. Tamara starts to take the lead, then Abby overtakes. Tamara retakes the lead, and so on. The bell sounds, and they are on the final lap. On the last bend, Abby turns her ankle and falls to the floor in pain. Tamara looks back and smiles, knowing that victory is hers. And now, onto the ending. As she approaches the finish line, Tamara suddenly stops. She looks back and sees Abby still writhing in pain. Tamara runs back and helps Abby to her feet. Meanwhile, all the other runners pass them and finish the race. Tamara helps Abby to the finish line. Tamara smiles. She has lost the race, but won a friend. Now that seems like a fun story to write. The 5 W's method. Begin with the main heading in the center of your paper and surround this with 5 subheadings. Who, what, where, when, and why. It doesn't really matter which spoke you start on, though I prefer to begin with the main character. In my story, the main character is a young woman called Joyce. Moving on to the what. What happens? Well, Joyce is returning home from work and gets into the elevator. As it reaches her floor, it stops abruptly and the lights go out. Where does this story take place? Obviously in an elevator in her apartment block. Let's have a live on the 13th floor, an unlucky number for some. When does this happen? It'll be early evening, during a thunderstorm. Perhaps she'll think that this was why there was a power outage. Why does this happen? In the end, it will turn out that the elevator was shut down deliberately by Joyce's friends. When the door finally opens, her friends are waiting with a happy birthday banner. Again, this would be another fun story to write. The Story Mountain. Be careful using this one if you're faced with a time constraint. It's easy to plan a long story using this method. Begin by drawing an arc on your page. Consider drawing around a protractor. This is your mountain. Put a box with a start on the bottom left and end on the bottom right. Now draw the build-up, problem, and resolution boxes. You plan from left to right, following the arc of the mountain. My story will start by introducing a character called Sam. Sam never hands his homework in on time and is always inventing excuses for this. The build-up. Sam's teacher gives him one last warning. If he doesn't complete the latest homework and hand it in on time, he will fail the subject. On to the problem. Sam works hard and completes the homework. He's afraid of forgetting to bring it to school in the morning, so he puts it by the front door. Unfortunately, he wakes up to find his puppy has eaten it. Resolution. How can he resolve the problem? He can't go to school and say, "My dog ate my homework." He decides to take his puppy to school and hands it in to the teacher. "Here's my homework, miss," he says. Ending. His teacher is a dog lover and is so taken by the puppy she completely forgets about the homework. Sam has survived another day at school. Once again, you know if your plan is good if you feel excited to write the story. Before we finish, something I sometimes hear in class. I don't know what to write about. How do writers come up with their story ideas? First of all, let's be clear. You have an amazing imagination and will have no problem coming up with an idea for a story given time. The difficulty is coming up with an idea at the snap of a finger. I would recommend you start an ideas book. Roald Dahl kept one of these. Inside he wrote down ideas for stories, possible character names, story plot ideas. He was inspired by the people he met in his daily life. The BFG was the result of a dream he had. Finally, you'll be influenced by the stories that you read yourself. So to become a great writer, you need to read and read. So there you go. From now on, start planning stories that you're excited to write. Begin a story ideas book and note down ideas for story plots, story characters, and story settings. even fun facts and interesting words and phrases you hear. Try using the beginning, middle, end story plan. Try using the 5W story plan. Try using the Story Mountain plan. Once you've given them all a go, decide on which one you prefer and consistently use that one. Happy planning!